Final hour overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. Our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Steve Sands coming up as well. He has placed eyes on Tiger Woods. We'll get Sandsy's take on what he's seen, what he expects. He's a big Capitals fan, too. Maybe get his take on where Ovi and the Caps are at. And Darren Dreger coming up here in a moment. And I think we've talked about this before, but like there's an epidemic in society right now of people talking in public on speakerphone. And I just saw it in the calf. There's a guy walking around work on speakerphone having a pretty loud conversation.
But why not put it to the ear?
That's what I'm saying.
If you don't have earbuds, put your phone to your ear.
Yeah. Like it's just wild. The speakerphone chats at work, on buses, trains, planes, walking through the mall. It's crazy.
But you're scared to say something because they'll spin it around on you. Like that's the thing. You want to say like we're not interested in your conversation, but if
you can't say anything.
You can't say that. Oh, you trigger them, or you'd be upset. Like
right.
There's so many confrontations, and that's the wrong word, but things you want to go, I don't need to hear your conversation. I don't care about your opinion. All of these types of things. But you're like, I'm just going to stick to myself here because I have no idea what that person's all about, what they're capable of, or what they're going to accuse me of.
After COVID, everyone, and this is true across the board in any walk of life and anything, everyone, and I'm sure this was in society before COVID, but everyone is just about themselves. They're like, I'm going to go about my daily business. I'm going to talk loud on my speaker in the subway, in a store, whatever. And you can't say anything to them because they say, shut up and leave me alone and I'm going to do it. Everyone just does whatever they want. And you can't say anything to them, man.
Yeah.
They drive wherever they want. They walk wherever they want. Do you know how many times, like, just driving, walking with a shopping cart and just someone standing right near the exit or on their phone, and you're like, you're right in the way of the exit, and they're like, shut up, that's where I want to. It's just like,
but
shut up.
You know what you do?
Take your Enterprise and pack it.
I've got this move. I wear a headset all the time, so you just go, let's go, and then they think you're talking to them, but you act like you're talking to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
You act like you're on the phone.
I like
so,
that.
You pretend you just join in with what they're doing. But I don't know how many times somebody's walking slow doing something and I'll be like, let's go.
Everyone's into their own stuff and they just don't care what the consequences of anything are.
You're
right. The speakerphone one though is just I'm sorry.
It's crazy.
Like there used to be a time, remember when you would be on speakerphone, you'd always be instinctively you'd be like, do you have me on speakerphone? Now you don't even ask anymore. You don't even you just assume you're probably on speakerphone. Because people are going to get jammed up with a speakerphone malfunction. We've talked about those before. The speakerphone malfunction is really
the only
dangerous.
time I think of speakerphone is if I'm talking to my wife in the kitchen and I got to clean some dishes or something.
Yeah.
And I could still hear the voice. Other than that, I don't know why you would want that.
Listen, privacy of your home, totally different story.
Yes.
Completely different story. I don't care. Who cares? Do whatever you want.
Hey, you got to hit a 5-iron? Put it down, put it on speaker, and say, hang on a sec. Whatever.
I'll grant you that. But walking through Yorkdale before Christmas, maybe find some AirPods. Maybe mix in an AirPod. Or just, I don't know, put it back up against your ear like we did for, 50 years.
You just said walking through the mall, Hazy, it's getting around Christmas time. And I love the Christmas romance story. We should maybe get into some possible, the Hallmark movies where the guy goes back to it, and it ends up being a great story.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get into somehow that what would be great, like sports Christmas stories where it was like Bill Belichick leaves, goes back to San Diego. Maybe that's his home, like some kind of sporting Christmas story. That would be a good one. We'll have to get into that in the near future.
I like that idea. Yeah, a little Hallmark plus OverDrive equals, pretty tremendous content, I think. And you know who is like the Meryl Streep of that is Candace Cameron Bure.
Yes.
She's in every single one of those movies.
Dude, I need one to switch up. Like the guy goes back to his hometown. He gets an apartment. He sees his high school sweetheart. I need the guy to be like a mass murderer or something one time.
Yeah.
And just switch it up.
Mix in something really dark.
Something different.
Yeah, it's always, you're right, it's always the same thing. And they start off, they don't like each other. I don't like
Oh, yeah.
that guy.
And he
He's
goes into
rude.
like a convenience store and there's a good looking girl working in there. And it's like, hey, didn't we go to high school? And then they're at the Santa Claus parade.
Always.
And then it's the same
There's always
nonsense.
a small town in Colorado. Hey,
It
are
is.
you going to the tree lighting tonight? I am, actually. And boom,
so
magic
true.
love is in the air, right?
Yeah.
Love is in the air. All right, here's we got Dregs on the line. He doesn't want to hear us.
He's hung
talk
up
about-
already.
There's a high possibility. We should do a Jerry's on whether or not he's even there. Here's Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider. You still have us, Dregs?
No, I got you.
Okay.
And I'm comfortable enough in where I'm at in my life to admit that I've perused some Hallmark movies.
Okay.
Oh, no way.
Wow.
Yes, I have. I haven't committed. Like, I wouldn't say I've committed, but it's what gets me is the recognition of the actresses and the actors that you've seen in past movies or whatever. And you're like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then you kind of get hooked in, and it's
No,
kinda-
Dregs, let me ask you this. How soon into the Hallmark movie do you know exactly how it's going to play out? Because I think for me it's 7 minutes.
Oh, 7 is extreme. Like, do we not know as soon as it starts? Like, if there's a Christmas tree involved, which it always is, like somebody's kissing at the Christmas tree at the end of the movie. You
Yeah.
know
Oh,
that's
yeah.
happening.
Always.
You know the good-looking
For sure.
dude, when he gets to that
Yes!
snowy town and he
Yeah,
locks
yeah.
eyes on someone who's really
For
good-looking, it's like
Yeah.
they are going home
Yeah.
together in 4 days.
Yeah.
And it's
And he was former captain of the hockey team or the football team, more appropriately for the American audience.
Mhm.
And maybe they kind of had a fling in high school, but then she comes back because she was a lawyer and didn't love New York City.
Yeah.
And they hook up again because he owns a Christmas tree farm and his family is struggling. And there we go. That's the way it is.
Or it's the old codger that can't walk and he's like 100 years old and you take him to the Christmas tree and his granddaughter's magically there. Like, there's another plot. It's just, it's
Oh, yeah.
automatic.
She's a model, and he's
Oh,
ugly
yeah.
as sin.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, that's your,
Yeah.
that is your granddaughter.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It
Hey,
all works
as
out.
long as they don't go to the train station, which is a Yellowstone reference, then everybody's safe.
That's
Everybody's
right.
true.
That's
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm curious, Dregs, if you think we can spark a little Hallmark type
Okay. Yeah.
scenario here with Brad Treliving and his old team. He goes back to Calgary because he's desperate for a defenseman here in Toronto. Like,
Yeah.
seems to be moving in that direction with Giordano now hurt, Lilligren's hurt, Klingberg probably doesn't play again. It's desperate times. Is it desperate
Yeah.
measures or what in Toronto?
Well, it's definitely thin on that back end. I mean, that's pretty off now, right? And Lilligren is at least skating. He skated earlier today in full equipment, but that doesn't mean he's getting close. He hasn't skated in over a month, so he's going to have to figure that out and get up to speed. I haven't heard a whole lot on Giordano, to be fair, but none of that really matters because Brad Treliving was certainly on the march and on the hunt, and the connections to Calgary have been well documented over the last number of weeks. And I don't think much has changed there other than if you're the Calgary Flames, you're playing a little bit better. Like, why are you in a big rush? You might as well sit back and kind of see how the market manifests. But you got to be careful in how you position that too. Like, if you've got you captivated audience in Treliving, Vancouver Canucks made a deal earlier today to create a little cap space. We know that they would love Chris Tanev out of Calgary. So, I think you got to make the deal, and the deal makes sense. And I'm not sure Toronto is quite there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Don't
Noodles.
I was just going to say, don't you think that, the urgency is not only for the Toronto Maple Leafs? There's a lot of teams. Like, we are seeing the first trade, like Beauvillier. Do you not feel like this is the time where, for lack of better words, the floodgates are going to start to open? You're going to see a lot of teams be very proactive to kind of either save their season or continue to jolt it along.
100% Noodles, but you know what? I think we saw it a little bit last night. We're seeing it in how the Edmonton Oilers are playing of late, and this is what like the fan base is always after the coach. They're always after the manager. Like, why aren't you doing something? Like, figure it out, find a way. Well, you got to get to that 20-game mark, which normally is U.S. Thanksgiving, to see what your team really is. And it's not just strength or weakness. It's, if you're Edmonton, as an example, and yeah, they're playing better of late, last few games, but Kenny Holland isn't going to spend future assets unless he knows that the team that he's spending those assets on is worthy of going on a hard Stanley Cup run. And I would say the same thing in the Toronto Maple Leafs, to be fair. They're the Oilers of the East. We talked about it last night on the panel. From the midpoint of that game till the end, Toronto competed. And I know Brad Treliving is on those guys every single day. You got to compete hard. There's got to be a hardness in how you play. But we didn't really see that. Maybe we saw more of that in the second half of that game. So not to let the manager off the hook, because at the end of the day, they're the architects of what these rosters look like. But you got to see a little bit more living proof before you start pulling the trigger on what might be available. And frankly, right now, there's not a lot, because the teams that are even remotely selling want an exorbitant price.
With Darren Dreger, our TSN hockey insider, we had Jason Strudwick on last hour, and Struddy was saying, there's rumors in Edmonton. The plan is to get Jack Campbell back up at some point. Yeah. And yeah. I'm curious if you're hearing the same thing, and if so, does that mean Skinner, Campbell, that's it? They're just going to hope that patches back together and it works in terms of goaltending in Edmonton?
No, I don't think that's it, Brian. But, I think Chris Johnson mentioned this on Insider Trading last week, and it's an option, right? It's based on, okay, well, you send Jack Campbell down, clears waivers. Of course, nobody's going to take him at the contract. And, you hope that he rebuilds his game. And if there's an opportunity to bring him up, you bring him up. But I think it's twofold. If he comes up and he can slide into your goal position, he plays better than what he's played, okay, well, that's a bonus. That's a reset for him. Or the other side of it is, look, Kenny Holland isn't trading for a goaltender and making a bigger deal unless Jack Campbell's contract is going out the other way. And it goes back to what I just said about, Edmonton and maybe Toronto to that point, not wanting to pay the futures that are involved in something like that. If you're paying futures to acquire a goaltender, if you're the Edmonton Oilers, the chances are it's because you're trying to include Jack Campbell's contract going out the other way. So if you stabilized, Darnell Nurse seems like he's playing better of late. Defensively, they're better of late. Obviously, McDavid is contributing offensively. So if the team is in a better place and you bring Jack Campbell back into the mix, maybe that either gives you an opportunity where he proves he can be a goalie in the NHL for the Oilers, or at least it gives you a little bit of a window to trade him at the NHL level.
With Darren Dreger, a TSN hockey insider, I think ideally you'd like to make trades, obviously, but with the cap being what it is, generally it just leads to coaches getting fired, and we've already seen that this week, right? With John Hines taking over in Minnesota, and Minnesota was disappointing. Edmonton made a change, but it doesn't feel like that's going to be the last one, Dregs. In the next month or two, you never want to see it happen, but it feels like it could happen at any point. There's a number of teams that you still circle. You're like, if they don't start playing better, something might give at that point.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. And I think you're looking mostly at Ottawa,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Because the heat is always up in the Canadian markets, and it's not like the American markets don't pay attention. But, basically from drop of puck, and this has been a building process in Ottawa where, we're turning the corner, we're not rebuilding anymore, all of that. We get it. And they're past that stage. And the Ottawa Senators, for the most part, have been disappointing. They've kind of bounced a little bit of late. I know that Steve Staios and ownership and Michael Landauer and the group, they want to stay patient. I think they believe that DJ Smith is a good coach. I think he's a good coach. Every coach has a shelf life. I know that's cliche. And I don't think DJ did himself any favors the other night after the loss to Florida, which, that was a significant loss when he dives on the sword and says, wow, I didn't have the group prepared. All right, well, and I'm not picking at the carcass here, but holy smokes. I think at that level, and Noodles and O-Dog, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. I know you had an illustrious career in the OHL.
Continue.
Yeah. But do you really, you know what's coming in when you're playing the Florida Panthers.
Darren, if those guys in Ottawa weren't ready to play, no coach should have some kind of Rocky Balboa pump-up speech ready for that game. If you don't have a group of players that are hungry, understanding what's at stake, you got a problem on your hands, personnel-wise. That's insane.
Agreed.
Don't you think, though, like DJ is falling on the sword for them because they've fallen on the sword for him, right? Like Kachuk came out, Giroux came out, blasting the fans, media.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of feels like it's almost like a tit for tat, like brotherhood thing. Like DJ Smith's like, I gotta stand up for these guys, man. They're standing up for me.
Yeah, no, I get it, and you're not wrong. And when I talked about it yesterday, in terms of the fact that they're staying the role of patient among management and ownership, I mean, I think that's where they're at. But patience can wear thin in a hurry. Hey, I had a conversation with Bill Guerin last week, and he literally threw it at the feet of his top players. They're not delivering. They're not executing. Our top end guys, Kaprizov and Bold, go down the list. They're not getting it done. And he didn't give any indication that he was on the cusp of firing Dean Evison. But guess what happens? You lose another game. You lose another game. Ownership comes down and says, we're not doing that anymore. So we need to figure this out. And you make a coaching change. So I feel like because of the circumstance in Ottawa with Steve Staios still not unsure or whatever he is, whether he's going to be the president of hockey ops or he wants to be the general manager, he still needs more time to figure out what he has in all aspects of hockey ops. But that can change in the next 4 or 5 games, I'm sure.
Well, don't you think, too, we've been saying it all along, it's easy to blame coaches and managers and stuff like that. If your top players don't play like top players in this league, especially with the way the salaries are, you're hooped. Edmonton's had a turnaround. Well, guess what? Guess who's leading it? It's not Derek Ryan. It's 97. It's 29. It's their power play. They're getting saves. You mentioned Darnell Nurse looks more like a defenseman that they paid $9 million for instead of a guy that wasn't playing very well. To me, top players are the ones who can drag you out. We were talking about it. What was it? 4 o'clock hour, Hayes, about Matthews' game and the Leafs are 11-6-3, and it still feels like they've got a lot more. And it's their top players are the guys where you look at that stability and go, okay, that guy's going to be able to deliver a win tonight because he's just capable of dominating the game. That's what I see in Edmonton. That's what I see in Ottawa and a lot of these organizations.
Yeah.
It's all about knee-jerk, right? And how much of it is ownership driven? We know the ownership in Edmonton is always foot on the pedal. What are we doing? We need to fix this. We need to do that. We need to do all this. In Ottawa, maybe it's different now with Michael Andlauer. Well, I mean, we're going to find out, but they keep preaching patience, and we'll see. I mean, I hope that turns out to be the case. Not that Jay Woodcroft isn't a good coach. I believe that DJ Smith is a good coach, and if he gets fired in Ottawa, then he'll get hired by somebody in the near future.
With Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider, that review in the shootout last night saved the Leafs, right? It saved the Leafs. It was a really wild scene, and obviously the Leafs benefit from it. They're happy. They move on. They don't make up the rule book. But the Panthers, I guess there were some Florida Panthers yelling about only in Toronto, as if there's some conspiracy to get the Leafs.
That's
to
just
the
hockey
third round?
players being sore losers. That's just it's a standard comment in that building.
Right.
Only in Toronto.
Only in Toronto. Yeah. I'm sure you've heard that, Dregs, but that.
Oh, no, that's the first time I ever heard that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was curious, right? Only in Toronto, I get it, but it was interesting that it happened in Toronto and the way it happened. And you guys all know. I think we all love Paul Maurice. Well, maybe not so much because he's got history there, and Paul tried to coach along and all those things and didn't work out so well. But
no, Dregs, I gotta admit, I got nothing wrong with Paul. It was a player-coach relationship, bud.
Yeah, exactly. But I love, there's two things. So Maurice leaves the bench, and we've all seen the video where he goes, okay, that one's good, and then, F you, and off he goes. And then he goes into his post-game, just rips on everybody in only the way that Paul Maurice can rip on. But one thing I will admit, and you're there, and you guys watched the game, I've never seen that double tap, double touch. I haven't seen it. And nor have I seen it called that way. And I'm not saying that Florida got screwed even a little bit. No, it was a right call. It was the call, and it reminds me of when the National Hockey League first embraced video review, and Colin Campbell and everybody saying, guys, there's going to be repercussions. We're going to be analyzing and overanalyzing everything.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the NHL got it right last night, I think.
I think they did,
Technically
but
they did, but
it's noisy.
It's annoying.
Hayes, you at least have been consistent. Doesn't matter if it was for the Leafs or not. You've been consistent about review. In Ottawa the other night, there was the Makar review or whatever you call it.
Offside.
That was a 4.5 minute review.
It's awful for entertainment. Yeah.
Awful. Terrible.
Yeah. And yet they're in now. They're not going to put the cat back in the bag.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. All right, Dregs, I guess we'll be seeing you tomorrow night on the panel. It might be sitting in your seat. I don't know. We got to figure that out, what we're doing tomorrow night. But
yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. They've asked me to join, but I'm not sure what I'm doing. I don't know. I mean, I'm a fill-in. I'm a seat filler. So you guys let me know when you need me, and I'll be there.
Beautiful. All right, buddy. We'll see you at the panel tomorrow night.
All right.
There it is, Darren Dreger. I like saying that. We'll see you at the panel. It's like a pub.
You talked about getting the video replay. I think the league, and I say this every year just because we cover it and we want things to talk about, but if they're just going to say, it's great for teams to lock in players for 8 years and then you're just kind of stuck with that and it's not much change, they have to figure out a way to get some more player movement to make it, there's 6 teams that need, a significant blockbuster to kind of re-energize and switch things around. What the hell's the sense of being in love with something, an idea, for 8 years or whatever it's going to be that doesn't work? It's great you got him under the salary cap, but if it doesn't work, what the hell's the sense of having all your core players on the same team?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's a scenario here where you look 30 years ago, the Leafs and Flames made that massive trade. That literally could be available today, where the Leafs...
like I said, there's 9 teams that would be looking for a 4-player trade, and it's good for business.
It's great for business. The problem is it's not only the cap hits; it's the amount of no trades and no movement clauses that get handed out now.
That's where it is. I think if you want to eliminate that, and this would be a PA thing because the players would have to sign off on it, you make the length of contracts maximum 5 years. Maybe 6 with your own team. Knock it down from 7 to 8. I think if you start to shrink the length, you will see a lot more turnover because players will start to make decisions a lot quicker as to where they want to stay. Now, we are seeing a few scenarios. DeBrincat, for example, Matthew Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau. Those are pretty significant players we might not have seen move.
Those are in the offseason, though. You never see it during the
season.
season.
I'm talking right now in the season. I guarantee you there would be 9 teams that would say, I'm interested in shaking up the mix here, whether it be the Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs, New York Islanders, Edmonton Oilers, Calgary Flames,
Columbus,
Minnesota. There's 10
Jersey,
teams.
There's you could count a bunch of them.
But you're right. They can make it work in the cap, but it just what happens is everyone's gun shy too. It's okay, do you want to trade this guy? And then he goes and does the Willie Nylander. If everyone who wanted to trade Willie to break up the core in the offseason and Willie goes
I'm talking about organizations like the New York Islanders. I'm pretty sure they've seen the same kind of operation go on for 3 or 4 years right now, where they're having after they went to that run to the Eastern Conference Final, They can't score worth squat. They've got no zip, no jam. They do it occasionally. I'm sure they'd love to shake up their mix.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I totally agree. And there are teams that want to even bottom out more than they are and would expedite that process by saying, who can we move to get ahead of this? And but I know what you're saying. Even just two teams calling each other saying, we just don't like the mix. Let's find 2 or 3 guys on each team. Let's make a deal here. And it's not even in the cards.
I'll
it's not
take
even
it.
on the.
I would take it. Like,
of course, who wouldn't? But you
right?
look at it like, yesterday, Vancouver makes a deal for a 5th-round pick and
salary dump.
Really, basically, Chicago's like, well, now we have some room. We want a veteran. So, all right, we're looking for a veteran. We'll give you a 5th-round pick, and Vancouver probably letting people know that they're in the middle of pursuing some sort of other trade because they wanted some cap relief. But that's all you get is cap relief and waivers. You get a cap relief dump and waivers. That's
garbage.
That's the modern NHL. It's awful. And
maybe it's not like blockbusters. I mean, I do love blockbusters, but I just think it would be so good for entertainment value, not just for us because we do this show every day, but for fan bases that have to sit and watch the same team for 8 years do the same thing. It's like, how entertaining is that?
Yeah. No, it's right. Like you look at, I don't know, we can come up with countless examples of when it did happen in the cap era. Right? Like there were deals that used to happen. Like COVID has jammed up a lot. It's jammed up a lot because the cap hasn't moved in 3 years. There's no disputing that. But I'm not holding my breath that in 5 years there's all this trade activity. It just feels like everyone's comfortable. Everyone gets long-term deals. Everyone gets a no trade or a no move. And, you make your moves in the offseason, maybe leading up to the trade deadline, some tinkering, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. Let's see what you got.
That's one that you just mentioned. You take away that there's absolutely, it's against the rules to have a no trade, no move. That's one thing. Like you get my 8 years, no problem. But like now, all of a sudden, you can't go. Okay, well, that team is on my no-fly list.
Right.
Doesn't matter. You got your money. We can trade you anywhere. That might start the cycle.
Players would have to give it up, and that's like the players. Are probably not going to, and the league's not going to fight because they probably prefer other stuff. You know, in terms of the give and take of a negotiation, but yeah. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Steve Sands coming up. How has Tiger Woods looked this week? We'll get you an update on that. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Before we get to Sandsy, Hayes, shout out to the Flyers and Torts last night, having that kid on the bench.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Really
that
cool.
Was a really cool touch. So everyone likes to give it to Torts about whatever, but that's a good thing for the Flyers.
Yeah.
It's always been the case with Tortorella that you're talking about two separate things, right? Like when he's behind the bench or talking about hockey or interacting with reporters, like for me it's too much. It can get goofy at times. But what everyone has said is like away from that, he's a great guy.
Yep.
Like a great guy. Like people that played for him, like Frankie Corrado always said loved him when he was in Vancouver. Ray knows him well. Ray's always like, I love Torts. Like he just seems like a good guy, but he can blow a gasket, man. Torts can get a little carried away at times. But that was really cool. That was a really cool scene last night. And it's been cool seeing Tiger. Tiger's talking a big game, right? Hoping to play once a month. And that might be a little bit deceptive because it's not like he's not playing at Sea Island in early November. He's going to hopefully play 6 or 7 times over the course of 6 or 7 months, but looks healthy. He's down there in the Bahamas. He's playing, and a guy that is obviously all over the scene like he always is, one of our favorites from the Golf Channel and NBC here is Steve Sands. How you doing, Sandsy?
Man, I did the play-by-play at the RSM Classic at Sea Island. What's your beef with Sea Island, man?
Apologies. And that's O's go-to spot. O's always saying that's where he's going to retire. He loves Sea Island. We love Sea Island on the show.
I love those courses, Sandsy. I love that whole place.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think Tiger will be playing? Are you breaking news on our show? Will Tiger be at Sea Island? I hope so.
I can pretty much guarantee that I could walk into the sports book right now here at Baha Mar in the Bahamas and bet $1 billion that he will not play in that event.
Right. Okay. All right. Just clarifying that. But he is, he's pretty ambitious. He's feeling pretty good. Are you drinking the Kool-Aid here? Are you having belief that we could see Tiger 6, 7, maybe 8 times this year?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we could see him, 6, 7, 8 times. I think that if he's healthy and he's playing okay, he still has the swing speed. His swing looks good. It's just a question of whether or not he can handle it physically. Walking 5 days in a row, including a pro-am. Played 9 holes today, plays 4 rounds tomorrow. It's a flat golf course. Should be able to handle it here physically, no problem. But can he go up and down the hills at Augusta for 4 days? Can he go up and down the hills at Riviera for 4 days? Can he do that kind of thing? We'll have to wait and see. So I'm not quite drinking the Kool-Aid just yet. Need to see him compete before anything else.
Sanzi, in your pre-tournament meetings, production meetings, has anyone ever said or brought up the idea that the Tiger comeback idea we're getting a little bit out of hand, or is it if you can show him on Earth, you put him on the camera?
It's if two things can be true at once, this would be it. Everyone, not that anybody is sick of Tiger by no means.
No.
But I think they're sick of the comeback every single time. So that can be true. But the other part is it doesn't matter, and he's earned this. There are very few athletes who have earned the right to literally be shown or seen on TV or talked about on radio shows literally every step of the way, and Tiger certainly is one of them. So, yes, I think people are like, okay, he's coming back again, but everyone who's interested or even remotely interested will certainly be watching or paying attention to what his score is and how he's playing and what he looks like, that kind of thing. So, listen, I've said this for years. I've had people tell me, I have a friend in Toronto, actually, who emails all the time about coverage and about all kinds of things. He's just one of these guys who just likes to reach out. And I love emailing back and forth with him. I've never met him in person. And he always says to me, why so much Tiger? Why so much Tiger? I said, because here's the thing with Tiger, guys, and this has been this way since 1997, since he won the Masters. 1996, before that, when he won his first PGA Tour event. It's been this way all the way through. When you are busy at work or with your kids or with family or whatever you're doing and you can't watch a PGA Tour event and Tiger's in it, the first thing someone asks is, what did Tiger shoot? The second thing people ask is who's leading. It's always been that way and always will be that way. And again, he's earned that type of stature, and it's not going away anytime soon. There's a lot of interest from a lot of people. This is probably the only reason I'm talking to you guys tonight, is because he's teeing it up tomorrow.
Yeah.
As him physically, Sanzi, I know he's got no right leg, but his upper body looks massive on the range. Does it look like he kind of bulked up in that area? And I don't know if that's to compensate maybe some club head speed because he can't get it down low. But did he? How's the appearance? Did he look kind of bigger in the upper body?
Honestly, man, he looks like he could play middle linebacker for the Argonauts right now. I'm serious,
Really?
man. He looks big, man. He looks, like he's been in the gym a bunch, which I'm sure he has because, he's an uber competitive guy. He has time on his hands to not only work on his game and that swing speed you talked about, which, by the way, is still there. The swing speed is there. The swing is there. The game is there. The rust needs to get shaken off. But he's big. There's no question about it. He's always been someone who has taken a lot of pride in, having his body be finely tuned, and also, he looks good, man. He looks really, really good. And I saw him today for the first time in a while, and he definitely looks like he's not jacked. I mean, it's impossible for a golfer to be completely jacked, but he certainly looks bigger than the last time we saw him, no question about it.
With Steve Sands of NBC and the Golf Channel, he's down on the Bahamas, the Hero World Challenge beginning tomorrow. Tiger Woods is one of 20 golfers in it, and Tiger this week saying he wants to play a lot, but when you look at his track record recently, Sandsy, last year he only played in 2 events. We haven't seen him since Augusta. The year before he played 3 times. The year before that he played 3 times. He played 8 times in the last 3 years. So it's difficult to jump on board and visualize him playing all these events. But once you get past that, and let's suggest it happens, and I certainly hope it does, like, what do we need to see, or what do you need to see to take it from, his health, his swing, club head, what shoes he's wearing, to, wow, he's competing again, and we think he can actually win?
I think it's all physical. You talked about all those numbers. The reason he only played 2 or 3 events in the last few years, and 8 total, you said, in the last 3 years, is because of the physical nature of the sport. People look at walking a golf course and kind of poo-poo it as far as what it takes to do that. Now, is it the most strenuous thing in professional sports? Of course not. But it is an intricate part of this particular sport. And if you can't go all 4 days, that includes up and down hills. That includes when it's wet. That includes when the grass is soft. We all know what it's like walking around and stuff like that. You have to walk gingerly, and we're healthy. Right? His right leg is not. So what I need to see from Tiger, just on a professional level, is the swing speed's there. You know the game is there. He's going to shake the rust off if he gets the starts. And I think he'll play this week. If he can go all 4 days this week and look like he's not limping, look like he's not in pain, look like he's comfortable, then moving forward, I think we will see him, 5, 6, 7, 8 times next year. I think we'll see him at the Genesis at Riviera in February. I think we'll see him once, maybe twice. In the Florida swing. I think you'll see him either at Bay Hill or at the Players' Championship. I think the Players' Championship makes the most sense for him. And then I think we'll see him at Augusta. And if he continues to be healthy, I think then you'll see him sporadically throughout the year, like you said, 6 or 8 times. But it totally is predicated on how he looks. Forget his game. Forget competing. Forget trying to win. Let's see him get through 4 days with a bad lie, with a funky lie in the rough where he's got to have his leg kind of twisted just a little bit. How's he going to react to that? That's, to me, the key to how Tiger's going to move forward, not how he plays compared to the guys who are also in this field who are world-class players. We know he's a world-class player. Let's see him be healthy and then get after it. It can't be the other way around. The game doesn't precede the health. The health precedes the game.
Sansi, Tiger also mentioned being on the board and trying to get the tour straightened out. Do you have any update on how that is looking? Because it was way back at the Canadian Open when we saw you up in our booth there where Jay Monahan had that announcement, and then there hasn't really been a lot of clarity since then. And there's been rumored offers to John Rahm and Max Homa. Like, is Live still a thing, or what the hell is going on with all of that?
Speaking of being with you guys at the Canadian Open that week, how's the laptop situation?
Sansi, I was going to send you an invoice for wrecking my laptop. I think you spilled the Diet Coke, or you did something for me to cause my own laptop to.
Listen, I got news for you. I've spilled plenty of drinks in my life, but they are way stronger than just having a Diet Pepsi.
Yes.
Okay? You don't spill water in Diet Pepsi.
You're right.
So the update is that there isn't one. It's very, very intricate.
Is that weird to you?
Very tricky. It is a little bit weird. The deadline, in quotes, is December 31st. I'm not sure they're going to reach that because there's just so many factors involved. You have the PGA Tour. You have private equity. You have the PIF, which is the Saudi Arabia wealth fund, the money that's being pumped in from there. And then you have the DP World Tour also involved because of the Ryder Cup and all the second largest tour in the world next to the PGA Tour. So everybody's trying to figure it out. And right now, everybody's kind of in flux. And that's the reason Tiger joined the policy board. He joined the policy board voluntarily. He was getting pressure from some of his friends on tour to do it because of his stature in the sport. And he accepted that challenge and accepted that responsibility, which I think is really cool. And one of the reasons he accepted it is because he doesn't want to see this ever happen again. He wants to make sure that things get locked up, sewed up, so that the tradition of the PGA Tour continues on and on for decades and decades. And right now, nobody's quite sure exactly what that's going to look like. But there is going to be an influx of money, whether it's the Saudi Arabia money and or the private equity money. And it's just going to take a little bit of time. But I'm not sure they're going to get it done here this December. I think it might spill over into January of 2024, but we'll see.
Should we be reading anything into the fact that John Rahm's not there, Schauffele's not there, Cantley's not there? Like, those are names also that are getting a lot of buzz right now, Sansi, and none of them are down there. And this is usually a tournament where, like, the top 10 guys, there's like one guy that misses. But
the only thing that I find strange about those three not being here is that I think every single player who plays on the PGA Tour today should kiss the ring and play this week because it's Tiger's event. It's Tiger's Foundation that benefits from all the money that's raised this week. And he's the reason, seriously, the sole reason that these guys are playing for the money that they're playing for. Rahm not being here, I think, is a little bit more significant than Patrick and Xander, not just because he's a more accomplished player, but because of all the rumors of him, talking with Liv and the $600 million and all these kinds of numbers that have been floated around. Who knows, what's true and what's not true. But the recruiting back and forth was not supposed to take place anymore after we were all together in Toronto at the RBC Canadian Open. That was part of that framework deal. Well, clearly they are chatting back and forth, but I just don't think John, Patrick, and Xander are going to go to Live. I just don't think it's going to happen, but I truly don't know. If I knew, I would tell you. I'm not looking into this week. John's a West Coast guy, lives in Scottsdale, just didn't feel like making the trip. And Patrick and Xander, I guess they just wanted more extended time off, but I don't think them not being here has anything to do with all the Live rumor.
Well, Sanzi, this one's a good one this week, buddy. Enjoy yourself down there. We'll catch you on the Golf Channel, NBC, all weekend. We can't wait for it, and we always appreciate you finding time for us. Thank you.
Anytime, fellas. Go Caps.
You got it. There he is, T. Sands of the Golf Channel and NBC.
Forgot to ask him about his guy, Ovi.
Yeah, Ovi's got 5 snipes, right? We've been buzzing about that.
You know what, though? I think it always happens. We'll talk about somebody, slow start, team hasn't been very good. All of a sudden, they just go on a heater.
Yeah.
They were so bad in the first 10 games. I was watching them. I'm like, they're the worst team in the league. They were garbage. And then they went on a heater. I could not believe it.
Yeah.
I'm still not buying, though. I don't think they're a playoff team.
No.
I don't. But, listen, they've
got 22 points.
Yeah.
I think they're right there with
10, 6,
everybody
and 2.
else type
Absolutely
of thing.
they are. Absolutely.
They won 5 in a row. That's what climbed them back into it. That's really what it was.
And that's what happens early in a season, right? You lose 5 in a row, you win 5 in a row. Like someone will lose, games 52 through 57, and we won't really pay attention. But when it's this early in the season, a 5-game swing changes everything when you're looking at the standings. Raptors in action tonight. Phoenix in town. Kevin Durant will play. Missed a couple of games. I think he has like a contusion. He's got some foot issue, but KD's playing tonight. And Phoenix has won 7 in a row. They got the best road record in the NBA. It's not great for the Raptors. And the Raps, were leaving New York last night. They lost in Brooklyn. They didn't play well. And I guess they had plane issues. They didn't get home till like 4 in the morning.
That sucks.
It really does not add up well for the Raps tonight. And yet, when I looked earlier on FanDuel, they were only a few-point dog. But I wonder what the update is. We'll get you an update on that. We'll come back with our best bets brought to you by FanDuel on that game tonight. Again, Raps in action. Leafs back in action tomorrow night. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Yep. Those holiday movies are just going to be flooding your screen.
Yeah. My wife watches them all, man. Our PVR is just loaded with it. Like it's.
But what is what does she say? Like it's just it gets her in the Christmas spirit, or she likes the love story, or
it's the predictability of it all. I don't know. It's Christmassy. It's soft. I'm not sure. I really don't, because they're all the exact same. It's always a small town. Someone's come home, and there's
the tree lighting is so important.
Always a tree lighting, right?
Or like a Christmas festival, or
it starts with like. She's driving back into town and she blows a tire and the guy happens to be driving by and pulls over to help, but then says something that's rude.
Randomly is moving back in himself. And you're right. Yeah. He pisses her off early in the movie. He does something stupid, like he either gets all boozed up or he swears, and he's got to just make amends.
Yeah, and eventually they both come around and they have that magic moment, and it's just it's predictable. But it is on a loop. They must be making money, man. They must be making money.
Dude, there's 30 different versions of this nonsense.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Like Candace Cameron Bure is Meryl Streep.
Dude, she's Mario
everywhere.
Lemieux of the Christmas movies.
Yeah, she is.
Insane.
She really is. All right, our best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Kevin Durant playing tonight. 2+ threes made by KD. Jakob Poeltl had 9 boards last night. I'm going back to the well, 10+ tonight. Double digits for Jakob Poeltl rebounds. Dennis Schroeder, 6+ assists. So Kevin Durant, 2+ threes made. Poeltl, 10 boards. Schroeder, 6 assists. That parlay paying plus 438. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. The sweat begins at tip-off by betting your favorite NBA star to score the first basket or go for 30+ points in a same-game parlay. Please play responsibly. 19+ and physically located in Ontario. All right, we will not be on the show tomorrow because we are doing the panel tomorrow night. Leave Seattle on TSN. James Duthie hosting. The OverDrive guys, we're going to be on the panel tomorrow. So we can't wait for that. I think Korolnik's going to be in here. Carlo's going to be in here. So first up is coming to the afternoon. So that's going to be awesome. And were people wondering, some guy wrote immediately after we announced it, he's like, well, what about the pick tomorrow night? Like, what about Luke and Al's brother?
Oh, yeah.
We'll figure that out. Owen Wilson, you guys are on the clock. You got that game. It's a tough game.
We will relay the pick.
Okay. It'll get out there.
Carlo and company.
Yes, it'll be announced. Don't you worry. No funny business. Team Owen Wilson on the clock for the Thursday night or tomorrow night. All right, thanks to everyone behind the scenes. We appreciate all the help, as always. Everyone for tuning in today, radio, TV, podcast, web, we appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
See you at the tree lighting, 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.